Imagine being the guardian of one of America's most wild and unforgiving landscapes, Big Bend National Park in Texas, a place where the beauty of nature meets deadly isolation. Now imagine disappearing without a trace, leaving behind only an empty service revolver found 2 years later, buried deep in the unforgiving desert. What really happened to Park Ranger Mark Reynolds? Stay with me, because this story will take you on a haunting journey full of mystery, heartache, and chilling questions no one has been able to answer until now. But before we dive into this mystery, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of these haunting true stories from America's wild frontiers. Big Bend National Park spans over 800,000 acres of raw, untouched wilderness. It is a place where the landscape itself seems alive, a brutal environment of jagged canyons, vast desert plains, and roaring rivers carving their way through cliffs. It's the kind of place that challenges even the most seasoned outdoorsman. Mark Reynolds was one such man, a park ranger, a protector, a guide, and a friend to the wilderness. But in October 2003, the wilderness took something from Mark, and to this day, his disappearance remains one of the most baffling mysteries in Big Bend's history. This is a story of courage, disappearance, and the relentless search for truth in a land where nature reigns supreme. Mark Reynolds was not just a man, he was a soul deeply connected to the wildlands of Texas. From the moment he took his first breath, the outdoors called to him like a silent song only he could hear. Raised in a small town near the edge of the wilderness, Mark grew up surrounded by the beauty of nature-towering trees, sparkling rivers, and wide-open skies that stretched as far as the eye could see. His family loved the outdoors just as much as he did, and every day spent outside was a gift they treasured together. As a child, Mark would spend hours wandering through the woods behind his home, feeling the soft earth beneath his feet and listening to the whispers of the wind. He learned early on how to watch the flight of birds to predict weather changes, how to track animals without disturbing them, and how to read the signs nature left behind. These skills were not just hobbies for Mark. Today became a language, a deep and sacred connection to the world around him. As Mark grew older, his love for the wilderness only grew stronger. He felt a sense of peace and belonging in the wild places where many people felt lost or afraid. To him, the forest was a living, breathing home, filled with secrets and stories waiting to be discovered. His heart beat in rhythm with the rustling leaves and the flowing streams. While other kids might have dreamed of city lights and crowded streets, Mark dreamed of mountains, rivers, and endless trails. He dreamed of protecting these beautiful places, making sure they stayed wild and free for generations to come. This dream became a compass that guided every decision he made. After finishing high school, Mark chose a path not many would understand. He joined the military, where he learned discipline, strength, and resilience. Those years tested him in ways he had never imagined, but they also shaped him into a man who could face danger with calm and courage. Serving his country was important to him, but deep down, he longed to return to the land that had nurtured his spirit since childhood. When his military service ended, Mark followed his heart and joined the National Park Service. This was not just a job for him, it was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. To work as a park ranger meant he could give back to the wilderness that had given him so much. It meant he could be a guardian of the land he loved, watching over it with the same care and devotion he had learned from his family. Mark quickly earned the respect and admiration of his colleagues. They saw in him a man who was reliable and steady, the kind of person you wanted by your side in any situation. His calm voice over the radio could bring comfort when things got difficult, and his sharp eyes missed nothing. Mark knew every inch of the park as if it were written on his skin. From the tallest peaks to the deepest valleys, from hidden trails to secret watering holes, he moved through the land with a confidence born of love and experience. He understood the dangers that lurked in the shadows, from sudden storms to wild animals, and he prepared himself to face them all with steady hands and a clear mind. Visitors to the park often felt safer just knowing Mark was nearby. There was something about his presence that put people at ease, as if the wilderness itself was watching over them. Families on vacation would thank him for his kindness and the stories he shared around campfires. He was more than a ranger. He was a friend, a protector, and a teacher. Mark's heart was open to the people who came seeking solace in the wild, and he gave them hope that the beauty of the land could be preserved. But no matter how many strangers he helped, the wilderness remained his true home. the place where he found his truest self. Even on the hardest days, Mark never lost his passion. Whether he was rescuing a lost hiker, repairing a trail, or simply walking the quiet paths at dawn, his love for the park shone brightly. His family could see the joy in his eyes when he talked about the animals he had spotted or the rare flowers blooming after a rain. This work was more than a career, it was a calling. Mark believed deeply that the wild places of America were treasures meant to be protected not just for today, but for the future. Every decision he made was guided by this belief, and every action was filled with quiet determination. But Mark was not just strong, he was kind and gentle. He carried a deep respect for all life, whether it was a soaring hawk, a cautious deer, or a fragile wildflower. To him, every creature had a role, every plant a purpose. His heart ached for the parts of the world where nature was threatened or forgotten. He dreamed of a day when people would understand the value of these wild places and work together to protect them. In his quiet moments, Mark would often think about his family back home and hope that his work was making a difference. He wanted his children to grow up in a world where they could still find peace beneath open skies and listen to the songs of the forest. Mark's dedication sometimes meant sacrifices. Long hours away from home, tough weather, and the weight of responsibility could wear on him. Yet he never complained. Instead, he found strength in the knowledge that he was part of something bigger, a chain of protectors stretching back through generations, all committed to safeguarding the wild heart of America. His spirit was tied to the land in a way that few could understand, a bond that gave him purpose and meaning beyond measure. His colleagues remember him as a man who never gave up, even when the odds seemed against him. If there was danger, Mark faced it head-on, using his training and instincts to stay safe and keep others safe. His courage was quiet but fierce, like the steady flame of a campfire burning through the darkest night. Many who worked with him learned from his example how to listen to the land, how to respect its power, and how to find hope even in the face of uncertainty. Mark's story is one of love. Love for family, for friends, and for the wild places that shaped him. It is a story of a man who gave everything to protect a world that many only see from a distance. His life reminds us that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who walk quietly among the trees, who know the language of the wind, and who carry the weight of nature's mysteries on their shoulders. As you listen to this story, remember Mark Reynolds not just as a missing ranger, but as a symbol of dedication and heart. His footsteps may have vanished from the trail, but his spirit remains alive in the rustling leaves and the endless sky above Big Bend. He is a guardian, still watching, protecting, and waiting. The morning of October 12, 2003 began like any other for Mark Reynolds. The sun had just started to rise over the distant horizon, spilling golden light across the vast wilderness of Big Bend National Park. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of dry earth and wild sagebrush. It was a perfect day for a patrol. Clear skies stretched endlessly above, promising calm weather and peaceful trails. Mark, as always, was ready to face the day with quiet determination and a deep sense of purpose. He loved these early hours when the park was still waking up, when the only sounds were the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds greeting the dawn. For Mark, these moments were sacred, a time to connect with the land he had sworn to protect. That morning, Mark's task was to patrol one of the most remote and rugged trails in Big Bend, a winding path that snaked through rocky canyons and thick brush near the banks of the Rio Grande River. This trail was not a place for casual hikers. It demanded experience, strength, and respect for the wild. Mark had walked these paths many times before. He knew the sharp edges of the rocks underfoot, the patches of thorny shrubs, the hidden places where rattlesnakes might lie in wait. To him, the trail was like an old friend, familiar, but always holding secrets. As he loaded his gear and checked his equipment, there was a quiet confidence in his movements. This was routine work for a man who loved his job and knew the importance of every step he took. At exactly 8 a.m., Mark radioed in to the ranger station to report his location and the weather conditions. His voice was steady and professional, calm as the still morning air. "Clear skies, no unusual activity," he said simply, reassuring those at the station that everything was normal. It was a routine check-in, But for those listening, it was the last time they would hear from him. The sound of Mark's voice, so familiar and grounding, would soon be replaced by an eerie silence that would echo through the park for years to come. As Mark moved deeper into the wilderness, the landscape around him changed. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the rocky ground. The silence was broken only by the crunch of his boots on gravel and the occasional snap of a twig beneath his steps. The wind whispered through the canyon walls, carrying with it the scent of distant water and the dry heat of the desert sun. For hours, Mark followed the winding trail, his eyes alert for signs of trouble. A fallen tree blocking the path, a lost hiker in need of help, or any unusual activity that might threaten the safety of the park and its visitors. The trail grew narrower and more difficult to navigate as Mark pressed on. The brush thickened, scratching at his sleeves and leaving tiny cuts on his hands. The rocks became jagged and uneven, forcing him to slow his pace and carefully choose each step. But Mark was undeterred. This was the kind of challenge he thrived on. He moved with the quiet grace of a man who belonged to the land, his senses finely tuned to every sound and movement around him. Even the smallest disturbance, the flutter of a bird taking flight or the rustle of a lizard darting across a rock, caught his attention. He was alone, but he never felt truly isolated. The wilderness was alive, and Mark was part of its timeless rhythm. As the sun reached its zenith, the temperature began to climb. The dry desert air grew warmer, pressing down on Mark's shoulders like an invisible weight. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and he took a long drink from his water bottle, careful to ration his supply. In this remote place, water was precious, and Mark knew that staying hydrated was a matter of survival. He paused briefly to catch his breath, scanning the landscape around him. The Rio Grande River shimmered in the distance, a ribbon of life winding through the arid land. The beauty of the scene was breathtaking, but Mark never let his guard down. The wilderness was as dangerous as it was beautiful, and one moment of carelessness could be fatal. Despite the challenges, Mark pressed on. He was driven by a deep sense of responsibility, not just to the park, but to every person who might someday walk these trails. He imagined hikers exploring these paths, families camping under the stars, children discovering the wonders of nature. His job was to keep them safe, to be their eyes and ears when they could not be there themselves. This sense of duty gave him strength and purpose, even as the day stretched long and the sun beat down mercilessly. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The calm routine of the morning gave way to a quiet tension. The birds fell silent, and the wind seemed to hold its breath. The trail ahead grew darker, shaded by towering cliffs that blocked out the sun. The air felt heavier, as if the land itself was warning Mark to turn back. Yet he pushed forward, determined to complete his patrol and ensure the park was secure. He was a man of courage and conviction, unwilling to abandon his post no matter the cost. As the afternoon wore on, Mark's radio remained silent. No calls came through to the ranger station, and no one heard his voice again. Hours passed, then days, with no sign of him. His sudden disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. Friends, family, and fellow rangers were left grappling with fear, confusion, and a desperate hope that he might somehow still be alive. Search parties combed the rugged terrain, calling his name into the wind, but the wilderness offered no answers. In the days that followed, those who loved Mark clung to memories of the man they knew, strong, steady, and always ready to help. They remembered the way he smiled, the kindness in his eyes, and the quiet confidence that made him a natural leader. But as time passed, the reality of his absence settled in like a cold shadow. The wild land he had loved so fiercely had swallowed him whole, leaving only questions and heartache behind. Mark Reynolds' disappearance on that bright autumn day remains one of Big Bend's most haunting mysteries. The very place he dedicated his life to protecting became the setting of a story that no one could explain. His patrol, meant to be routine, turned into a final journey into the unknown, a journey from which he never returned. The silence that followed his last radio call is a silence filled with pain, loss, and an unspoken fear of what might have happened out there, beyond the reach of human help. As the sun set on that day, casting long shadows across the desert, the world lost a guardian. But Mark's spirit, like the wild he loved, remains a part of Big Bend, whispering through the canyons, stirring the dust on forgotten trails. and reminding us all of the fragile line between man and nature, between safety and the vast unknown. The moment Mark Reynolds missed his scheduled radio check-in at noon, a wave of fear and urgency swept through the ranger station. It was unlike Mark to miss a check-in, especially during a solo patrol in such dangerous terrain. His calm and reliable nature made this silence deeply unsettling for everyone who knew him. The radio crackled with tense voices as his fellow rangers realized something was terribly wrong. The peaceful routine of the day shattered, replaced by a rising panic that gripped the hearts of those who cared about him. Without wasting a second, the search operation was launched with full force. Teams of rangers who had worked alongside Mark joined volunteers from nearby towns, all driven by hope and desperation. Every person involved understood the stakes. The unforgiving wilderness of Big Bend could be merciless to anyone caught off guard. They moved quickly, urgency pushing them forward, despite the difficult terrain. Helicopters roared overhead, scanning the vast landscape with bright searchlights, trying to spot any sign of the missing ranger from the sky. The smell of gasoline and the sound of rotors filled the air, blending with the natural sounds of the wild. On the ground, search dogs trained to find lost or injured people were unleashed to follow Mark's scent. These dogs sniffed through the dense brush, across rocky outcrops, and along dry riverbeds. Their noses close to the ground, ears alert. Their handlers called out to them gently, urging them to focus, to pick up the faintest trace of Mark's passage. Every paw step was a small beacon of hope, a prayer that the ranger could be found safe. Teams of rangers and volunteers carefully combed every inch of the area, moving in a methodical grid, their eyes scanning the ground, their hearts heavy with worry. The canyon walls echoed with the sound of searching voices calling Mark's name. The sun climbed and sank as hours stretched into days, yet there was still no sign of him. The silence from the wilderness was deafening, a cold reminder of the danger Mark faced. Despite their relentless efforts, the searchers were met only by the harsh, unforgiving landscape. Vast deserts, steep cliffs, and endless scrubland that seemed to swallow all traces of human life. The deeper the search went, the heavier the dread grew. Each new day without Mark's return was a day filled with grief and uncertainty. When the search teams finally reached the trailhead where Mark's journey had begun, they found something chilling. His truck was parked exactly where he had left it, the keys still resting in the ignition. Inside the vehicle, his backpack lay untouched, neatly packed as if he had planned to return soon. There were no signs of struggle, no clues indicating where he might have gone. It was as if Mark had simply vanished into thin air, swallowed whole by the wilderness he knew so well. The sight of his empty truck sent a sharp pang of pain through everyone involved. It was a heartbreaking reminder of the mystery surrounding his disappearance. Family members gathered around the trailhead, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. They clung to the hope that Mark might be hiding somewhere, injured but alive, waiting for rescue. But deep down, a cold fear gnawed at their hearts. The fear that he might never come back. Friends spoke softly about the last time they had seen him, sharing memories filled with laughter and kindness, as if trying to summon him back through words alone. The community came together in silent prayer, each person holding onto the fragile thread of hope amid growing despair. As the search continued, days turned into weeks. The vastness of Big Bend's wilderness made the task nearly impossible. Rangers and volunteers faced grueling conditions, scorching heat by day, bitter cold at night, and the constant threat of injury or exhaustion. Yet no one gave up. Each person carried a piece of Mark's spirit with them, pushing through fatigue and fear because they believed that their friend, colleague, or loved one was still out there somewhere. Every rock overturned, every scrub searched, was a testament to their determination and love. Despite the pain and uncertainty, the search became a symbol of community strength. Strangers joined forces, setting aside their own lives to help find a man who had given so much to protect the land they all cherished. Local news outlets began covering the story, spreading word far beyond the park's borders. Messages of support poured in from across the country, each one a reminder that Mark's disappearance touched many hearts. People sent prayers, donations, and encouragement, hoping to bring light to the dark mystery. But as the weeks passed with no breakthrough, the mood grew heavier. Search parties had to face the harsh truth that the wilderness could be cruel and unforgiving. The possibility that Mark had fallen victim to an accident, an animal attack, or worse, became harder to ignore. Still, no evidence was found to confirm any of these fears. The desert held its secrets tightly, and the silence became a painful reminder of all that was lost. The absence of any sign of Mark forced investigators to look at every possibility. They examined his last known movements, the weather conditions, and the dangers along the trail. They interviewed friends, family, and coworkers, piecing together a portrait of a man who was careful, experienced, and deeply connected to the land. Nothing about Mark suggested he would vanish willingly or without a trace. This made the mystery all the more haunting, a puzzle with pieces missing and no clear answers. In the face of growing uncertainty, Mark's loved ones refused to give up. They organized vigils, searched on their own, and held on to hope like a lifeline. Each phone call from the park brought a mix of hope and dread. Every update weighed heavily on their hearts. The pain of not knowing, the silence where answers should be, was a torment none could escape. Their grief was a quiet storm raging beneath calm faces, tearing at the edges of their souls. As months turned into years, the search for Mark slowed but never ended. New volunteers came forward, new technology was introduced, but the wilderness remained silent. His disappearance became part of Big Bend's history, a story whispered around campfires, a warning to those who ventured too far into the wild. Yet for those who loved him, Mark was more than a mystery. He was a man who walked among them, whose absence left a void impossible to fill. Through it all, the memory of Mark Reynolds remained alive in the hearts of many. His dedication, kindness, and courage were remembered and honored. The search may have been desperate and ultimately unsuccessful in finding him, but it was a testament to the bonds of friendship and community, to the power of hope in the face of darkness. The story of his disappearance is not just about loss. It is about the love that pushes people to keep searching, to never give up, and to believe that even in the wildest places, human hearts can shine brightest when they are united. After Mark Reynolds disappeared without a trace, the months that followed were filled with endless questions and restless minds. People wanted answers. They needed to understand what had happened to a man so loved and respected. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, no clear explanation emerged. Instead, rumors, theories, and speculation took hold, each one a way for people to try to make sense of the mystery that had gripped Big Bend National Park. One of the first ideas that came to mind was that Mark might have been attacked by a wild animal. Big Bend is home to creatures both beautiful and dangerous. Mountain lions, bears, and venomous snakes roam the park's vast wilderness. These animals are usually shy and avoid humans, but they can be deadly if surprised or threatened. Many believe that in his patrol, Mark could have encountered such a beast, and that it might have led to his disappearance. The thought sent shivers down the spines of those who worked in the park. Mark was experienced and cautious, but the wilderness is unpredictable. Even the most skilled ranger can face danger when alone in such a vast and wild place. This theory was both terrifying and heartbreaking, imagining Mark taken suddenly without a chance to call for help. Others suggested a more tragic accident. The landscape of Big Bend is rugged and full of hidden dangers. There are deep crevices and narrow canyons where a single misstep could send someone plummeting into darkness. Perhaps Mark had slipped and fallen, landing somewhere so concealed that no one could find him. The harsh terrain can swallow a person whole, leaving only silence behind. Another possibility was that he had fallen into the swift and unforgiving currents of the Rio Grande River. The water there can be cold and violent, with hidden whirlpools and jagged rocks beneath the surface. A fall into these waters could easily drag someone away, making rescue almost impossible. These ideas, while painful, offered a glimpse of explanation for the silence. They were reminders of the perilous environment Mark loved, but that also held so many risks. As time passed, other whispers began to circulate. Whispers darker and more mysterious. Big Bend's remote borders are known to be used by smugglers and illegal traffickers, who take advantage of the isolated terrain. Some people wondered if Mark had stumbled upon their activities during his patrol. If this were true, had he been silenced to protect secrets too dangerous to reveal? The idea of criminal forces lurking in the wilderness added a chilling layer to the story. It painted a picture of a man caught between his duty and the shadows of illegal deeds that thrive where the law struggles to reach. This speculation was both frightening and unsettling, leaving many to question just how safe the park really was. Then there were the stories that blurred the lines between reality and the unknown. Local legends spoke of strange lights that flickered across the desert night sky, unexplained sounds echoing through the canyons, and mysterious shadows seen by campers and hikers. Some believed that Mark's disappearance was connected to these strange phenomena, signs of something beyond human understanding. These tales, passed down quietly in small gatherings, added a sense of eerie mystery to the already baffling case. People wondered if there was more to Big Bend than just rocks and trees, if the land itself held secrets that could explain the vanishing of a man so familiar with its every inch. While many dismissed these ideas as superstition, the stories persisted, fueled by the fear and wonder that the wilderness often inspires. The mix of theories created a cloud of confusion that hovered over the investigation. Each idea reflected a different way to cope with the unknown. Some sought practical answers, others looked to darker possibilities, and a few dared to believe in the supernatural. For Mark's family, friends, and colleagues, this uncertainty was a heavy burden. They wanted clear answers, something to hold on to, but the mystery only deepened with each passing day. Friends remembered Mark as a man prepared for every challenge, a man who respected the wild and understood its dangers better than anyone. This made some theories harder to accept. Could he really have been caught unaware by an animal or fallen into a hidden crevice? Or was there something else, something that no one could explain? These questions lingered in the air, unanswered and haunting. For the people who lived near Big Bend, the disappearance became part of the park's complex story. They spoke in hushed tones about the risks of the wilderness, the dangers hidden beneath its beauty, and the mysteries that the land refused to reveal. Mark's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how fragile human life is against the vast power of nature and the secrets it guards. Even now, years later, the theories about Mark Reynolds' disappearance remain alive in conversations, in campfire stories, and in the hearts of those who seek justice and peace. Each new visitor to Big Bend hears whispers of the missing ranger and wonders what really happened in the wild that claimed him. The mystery is part of the park's soul now, a silent question that echoes across the rocky canyons and star-filled skies. While the official investigation left many stones unturned, the spirit of speculation and wonder continues. People still search for answers, still dream of solving the puzzle, and still honor the memory of a man who vanished while protecting the land he loved so deeply. Whether the truth lies in the harsh realities of nature, the shadows of human danger, or the mysteries beyond our understanding, the story of Mark Reynolds will never be forgotten. It remains a haunting reminder of the unknown and the courage it takes to face it. 2 years had passed since Mark Reynolds vanished into the wilds of Big Bend National Park. The endless search had yielded no clues, no signs, no answers, only silence where hope once lived. His family and friends had endured months of heartbreak and years of unanswered questions, their lives forever changed by the absence of a man they loved deeply. Then, late in 2005, something unexpected happened that stirred the fragile hope and fear that lingered in the hearts of all who knew Mark. A small team of park workers was assigned to conduct maintenance in a part of Big Bend rarely touched by visitors. This area was remote and harsh, a place where the desert's heat baked the rocks by day and the chill of night wrapped around the land like a cold blanket. The workers moved carefully across the rough terrain, their eyes scanning the ground as they cleared brush and repaired trails. It was during one of these routine tasks that something caught their attention, a dark shape partially buried beneath layers of sand and scattered rocks, hidden almost as if the earth itself was trying to keep it secret. Curious and cautious, the workers moved closer and began to clear away the dirt. As the object was revealed, a hush fell over the group. It was a revolver, unmistakably a service weapon. The weight of its discovery settled heavily on their shoulders, stirring unease and a deep sense of sorrow. This was no ordinary find. It was the revolver that had belonged to Mark Reynolds, the missing park ranger, whose disappearance had haunted Big Bend for 2 long years. The realization sent chills down the spines of everyone present. A cold wave of dread, mixed with the faintest glimmer of hope that there might still be answers buried here, waiting to be uncovered. The revolver lay on a flat rock outcropping, exposed to the harsh desert sun and dry wind. Its metal surface was worn, marked by time and the relentless forces of nature. But what struck the workers most profoundly was the sight of the empty chambers. No bullets remained inside. The standard issue, .357 Magnum, was completely unloaded. This detail transformed the discovery from a mere piece of evidence into a haunting symbol. An empty gun spoke of a story left untold, a moment frozen in time when Mark's fate hung in a delicate balance between life and death. No other belongings were found nearby. There were no notes, no signs of struggle, no footprints or other clues to guide investigators toward the truth. The silence around the revolver was heavy and complete, as if the desert itself was guarding a secret it refused to share. This lack of evidence deepened the mystery, making the revolver not just an object, but a powerful, silent witness to the unknown events that had unfolded in the vast wilderness. For Mark's family, the discovery was a cruel mixture of relief and pain. On one hand, finding something that had belonged to him offered a tangible connection to the man they missed so dearly. It was proof that he had been somewhere close, that his story had not been lost entirely to the wind. On the other hand, the empty chambers of the revolver raised terrifying questions. What had Mark faced? Had he fired his weapon in a desperate attempt to defend himself? Had he been outnumbered, outmatched, or left defenseless? Each unanswered question added weight to their grief, deepening the hole left in their hearts. The park rangers and investigators who examined the revolver approached it with a mixture of professionalism and somber respect. They photographed and collected the weapon carefully, knowing it could be a key piece of evidence. But even as forensic experts searched for fingerprints or other clues, the harsh reality of the desert's impact was clear. Time, weather, and the harsh environment had taken their toll, erasing many of the subtle signs that might have told the full story. The revolver, though found, remained an enigma, a cold, silent messenger from a chapter of the past still shrouded in darkness. The discovery sparked new waves of speculation and renewed efforts to solve the mystery. Some believed the empty revolver meant Mark had tried to defend himself against an attacker, perhaps someone dangerous hiding in the remote corners of the park. Others thought it might represent a last act of desperation, a moment when Mark faced impossible odds alone in the wilderness. The lack of other belongings suggested he had been separated from his gear, or that something sudden and violent had taken place. Every theory carried its own fear and sadness, as people struggled to imagine the final moments of a man who had given so much to protect this wild land. Despite the pain and uncertainty, the find also reminded everyone that Mark's presence lingered in Big Bend. The wilderness had not forgotten him. The revolver was a piece of his story, a fragment of a life interrupted but never erased. It was a symbol of courage and loss, a physical reminder of the fragile line between survival and the unknown that every ranger walks in these remote places. In the years that followed, the revolver became part of Mark Reynolds' legacy, a haunting relic that told a story no one could fully understand, but that no one could ignore. It fueled the ongoing search for truth and justice, inspiring those who loved him to keep asking questions, keep looking for answers, and keep honoring a man who vanished while protecting the wild heart of America. The discovery of Mark Reynolds' empty service revolver was a moment charged with powerful emotion, a discovery that both comforted and haunted those who found it. This small object, lying abandoned on a rocky ledge, became more than just a piece of metal. It became a symbol of mystery, courage, and unanswered questions. As people held that revolver in their hands, the weight of its silence pressed heavily upon them. What story did it tell? God. What had Mark faced in the vast wilderness of Big Bend? The emptiness of the chamber seemed to whisper secrets that no one could yet understand, and it left everyone wondering what it truly meant. One of the first and most haunting questions that came to mind was whether Mark had fired his gun in self-defense. The revolver was designed to protect, to give a ranger a fighting chance against danger. If it was empty, did that mean Mark had been forced to use it? Against whom or what? The wilderness is home to many dangers, both natural and human. Could he have encountered a wild animal, a mountain lion or bear, that pushed him to the edge? Or was there something darker? Perhaps a confrontation with someone trespassing on the park's remote borders for illegal reasons? The thought sent a chill through the minds of those trying to piece together what happened. The image of Mark, standing alone against a threat, firing his last bullets in a desperate fight for survival, was both terrifying and heartbreaking. If Mark had indeed fired his gun, another painful question arose. Had he run out of ammunition in a final stand? The idea of a man exhausted, out of options, facing danger alone in the wilds was almost too much to bear. It brought to mind scenes of quiet bravery, of someone who refused to give up despite overwhelming odds. Every empty chamber was a silent testament to courage under fire, a last act of defiance against the unknown. The emptiness also carried a cruel weight. Once the bullets were gone, so too was the chance for protection. What happened after the gun went silent? Did Mark manage to escape, or did the wilderness claim him in the end? The unanswered questions twisted like shadows in the minds of those who loved him. But what if the empty revolver meant something else entirely? Could it have been a deliberate message? A sign left behind by Mark himself? In the quiet desperation of his final moments, was the empty gun a symbol, a last communication from a man caught between life and death in a wild, unforgiving land? The thought opened a door to deeper, more complex feelings. Sometimes, when words fail, actions or objects take their place. Could Mark have placed the revolver where it was found to tell a story no one else could hear? Perhaps it was a silent cry for help, a reminder of the danger lurking in the wilderness, or even a sign of surrender to forces beyond his control. This possibility stirred deep emotions in those who pondered it. The revolver, empty and still, became a voice for Mark when he no longer could speak. It was a reminder of his humanity, his courage, and his vulnerability. The idea that he might have chosen to leave this message behind was both painful and powerful. It suggested a man who faced the harsh realities of his situation with clear eyes and an unbroken spirit. Even in the face of despair, Mark's presence lingered, a guardian not just of the park, but of the truth that no one had yet uncovered. For the family, the empty revolver was a symbol wrapped in grief. It offered a painful connection to the final chapter of Mark's life, one filled with uncertainty, but also with the undeniable mark of his bravery. Every thought of that revolver was tied to memories of the man who loved the land and its people, who walked the trails with steady hands and a kind heart. The questions it raised were like wounds that refused to heal, yet they also kept his story alive. A story that demanded to be told, understood, and remembered. For investigators, the empty revolver was a critical piece of the puzzle, but also a frustrating one. It held clues but no answers, evidence but no explanation. They examined it closely, searching for fingerprints, signs of struggle, or anything that might hint at what had happened in those final moments. But the desert had been cruel and unyielding, erasing much of the delicate evidence. The emptiness of the gun chambers was one of the few solid facts they had, and it became the focus of many theories and lines of inquiry. Was it a weapon used in defense, or a symbol of a deeper mystery? The lack of other evidence made the investigation difficult, forcing them to consider every possibility with caution and care. Among the park rangers and the community, the empty revolver stirred deep conversations about the risks and realities of life in the wilderness. It was a harsh reminder that the landmark loved so much was also a place of danger and unpredictability. The revolver was a physical link to the moment when everything changed, when the safety of routine patrol turned into a tragic unknown. It reminded everyone that even the most experienced and prepared could face moments of overwhelming threat, and that courage sometimes meant standing alone against the darkest challenges. As time passed, the empty revolver became more than just an object. It became a symbol of hope and mourning intertwined. It represented the courage to face the unknown, the pain of loss, and the enduring search for truth. People who heard Mark's story felt a connection to that silent weapon lying on a rock in the desert, a powerful emblem of a life interrupted but never forgotten. It inspired ongoing efforts to understand what happened, to honor Mark's memory, and to protect the wild places he cared for so deeply. In the end, the meaning of the empty revolver may never be fully understood. It holds a mystery that echoes the vast, untamed wilderness of Big Bend itself, full of beauty, danger, and secrets waiting to be revealed. But it also holds a message of humanity, of a man who faced those secrets with bravery and heart. The revolver speaks quietly, inviting us to remember Mark Reynolds not just as a missing ranger, but as a symbol of the delicate line between survival and the unknown. His story reminds us that even in silence, there can be meaning. Even in absence, there can be presence. And even in mystery, there can be a deep and lasting truth. The empty chambers of that revolver carry all of these things. A haunting question, a quiet courage, and a legacy that will never fade from the wild heart of America. Mark Reynolds' disappearance was not just a mystery that puzzled investigators. It was a devastating blow to his family, friends, and the entire park community. For those who loved him, every day that passed without answers was filled with a painful mix of hope and heartbreak. His wife, Sarah, became the face of that grief, speaking openly about the deep emotional wounds left by Mark's absence. She carried the weight of uncertainty with a quiet strength, but behind her brave words was a heart torn apart by loss. Sarah often said that she held on to hope every single day. That hope was a fragile thread she clung to, even in the darkest moments. It was the belief that Mark might somehow still be alive, that he might return from the wilderness that had swallowed him. But hope came hand in hand with pain, the pain of not knowing, of waiting for news that never came. The emptiness he left behind was like a wound that refused to heal. Each morning she woke to a silence where Mark's voice once was. Each night she lay down to an empty space where his presence used to be. The ache of his absence was a constant companion, one that followed her through the simplest moments and the hardest days. Their children felt the loss in ways words could not fully express. The everyday moments, birthdays, holidays, school events, all carried a shadow of what was missing. Friends and family tried to provide comfort, but the void Mark left was vast and deep. Sarah described the nights when her children would ask questions she could not answer, when the reality of his absence was felt most keenly. She held them close, sharing stories of their father's kindness and strength, trying to keep his memory alive, even as the uncertainty gnawed at their hearts. The pain of losing Mark was not isolated to his immediate family. The park community, the rangers, the volunteers, the visitors who had come to know him, also felt the sharp sting of his disappearance. Mark was more than just a colleague. He was a trusted friend, a steady presence in the wild landscape of Big Bend. His loss reminded them all of the fragile line they walked every day between safety and danger, between life and the unknown. It was a somber reminder that even the strongest among them were vulnerable to the unforgiving power of nature. In the months following his disappearance, the community came together in remarkable ways. Vigils were held beneath the stars, where friends and strangers gathered to remember Mark's life and to pray for his safe return. These gatherings were filled with quiet tears, shared stories, and a deep sense of connection. People brought candles, photos, and mementos, creating a space where grief could be shared openly. The vigils became a place of healing, a way for the community to support one another in the face of overwhelming loss. Memorial hikes were organized along the trails Mark once patrolled. These hikes were both a tribute and a testament, a way to honor the man who had dedicated his life to protecting the land and its people. As groups walked the rugged paths, they carried with them memories of Mark's kindness, his knowledge, and his unwavering commitment. The hikes were silent prayers, footsteps echoing in the wilderness as a symbol of hope and remembrance. Each step was a reminder that Mark's spirit still moved through the park, guiding and protecting in ways unseen. The emotional toll of Mark's disappearance rippled through the lives of those who knew him. For some, it was a sudden awakening to the dangers of the wilderness. For others, it was a deep, personal loss that reshaped their understanding of life and death. Many rangers spoke about how the experience changed them, how it deepened their respect for the land and the risks it holds. They carried Mark's memory with them every day, letting it remind them to be vigilant, careful, and compassionate. Sarah often spoke about the loneliness that followed. The long nights when the world felt unbearably quiet without Mark. She described how grief is not just a feeling but a journey, one that twists and turns with unexpected emotions. Some days, she found strength in memories and community. Other days, the weight of uncertainty pressed down so heavily it was hard to breathe. Yet, through it all, she remained a pillar of hope for her family and friends. Her courage in facing the unknown inspired many, showing that even in the darkest times, love and resilience can endure. The community's support was a vital source of comfort. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers offered help, from bringing meals to joining search efforts. From sharing words of encouragement to simply being present, this outpouring of kindness created a network of strength that helped Sarah and her children navigate the difficult days. It was a reminder that they were not alone, that Mark's legacy lived on in the hearts of many. As the years passed, the pain of Mark's absence did not fade, but it transformed. It became a part of the fabric of those who loved him, a silent thread woven through their lives. They carried his memory with pride and sorrow, a reminder of a man who walked bravely into the wilderness and whose story touched many lives. The emotional toll was heavy, but it also revealed the strength of family, friendship, and community in the face of loss. Mark's story continues to resonate in Big Bend and beyond, serves as a powerful reminder of the human spirit. Its capacity for love, courage, and hope, even when faced with the unknown. The pain of his disappearance is a testament to the depth of his impact and the love that surrounds those left behind. It is a story of grief and healing, loss and remembrance, and the enduring power of hope to carry us through the darkest nights. Over the years following Mark Reynolds' mysterious disappearance, Big Bend National Park became a place not only marked by natural beauty and wild landscapes, but also by whispered tales of the unexplained. Visitors and locals alike began sharing stories that seemed to stretch beyond the boundaries of ordinary reality. These were not just stories of the land or wildlife, were stories filled with eerie sensations, strange sounds, fleeting glimpses that hinted at something unseen, lurking just beyond human understanding. The atmosphere of the park, already heavy with the weight of Mark's absence, grew even more mysterious, inviting both fear and fascination. Campers who spent nights beneath the vast, starry sky of Big Bend started to report strange encounters that left them shaken and questioning what they had experienced. Many spoke of hearing footsteps crunching softly on the dry earth. Footsteps that moved around their tents or campsites, but belonged to no one visible. The sound was so clear and close that it felt impossible to dismiss, yet when they peeked outside or called out, there was no answer. These footsteps carried a feeling of presence, quiet, watchful, and sometimes comforting, but always haunting. The mystery of those invisible visitors left campers with a sense of awe and unease, as if the park itself was alive with memories and spirits from the past. Shadows were another common element in the stories told around campfires. People described seeing dark shapes flicker just beyond the reach of their flashlight beams or the soft glow of their fires. These shadows seemed to move with a life of their own, disappearing when looked at directly, but never truly gone. Sometimes they appeared as fleeting silhouettes on the canyon walls, or just out of the corner of an eye. The feeling these shadows left was often hard to put into words. A strange mix of sadness, protection, and ancient mystery. For some, the shadows were a reminder of Mark Reynolds, a guardian spirit watching over the land he loved so dearly. For others, they were simply a sign that the wilderness held secrets beyond what could be explained by science or reason. Perhaps the most unsettling experiences were those involving voices carried on the wind. Campers and hikers shared stories of hearing names whispered softly in the night air, voices calling out in a way that seemed too personal to be random. These voices were sometimes gentle, sometimes urgent, but always filled with emotion. The names called were often those of people who had disappeared or were deeply missed. Like Mark, the wind seemed to carry these messages across the empty desert, wrapping the listeners in a blanket of sorrow and hope. The voices added a layer of the supernatural to the park's already intense atmosphere, making many feel that something beyond human understanding was at work. Among the park's many stories, one of the most enduring beliefs is that Mark Reynolds' spirit still roams the desert he once protected. For some, this idea brings comfort, a sense that Mark did not simply vanish, but transformed into a presence that continues to watch over Big Bend. They imagine his spirit walking the trails, his eyes scanning the horizon, his heart still connected to the land. This belief turns the tragedy of his disappearance into a story of ongoing protection and love. Visitors who feel a sudden chill or a peaceful calm in the desert sometimes say it is Mark's way of saying he is still there, guarding the park and the people who venture into its wildness. Despite these powerful stories, it is important to remember that no official evidence supports the claims of paranormal activity in Big Bend. The Park Service and investigators approach these tales with skepticism, relying on facts and science to guide their work. Yet the eerie atmosphere of the park and the powerful emotions tied to Mark's disappearance continue to fuel endless speculation. The stories live on in whispered conversations, campfire tales, and the quiet moments when the desert seems to hold its breath, waiting for someone to listen. The mixture of natural beauty and mysterious whispers makes Big Bend a place unlike any other. It is a land where the line between the known and the unknown feels thin, where every rustle of leaves or distant howl can stir the imagination. For many, this is part of the park's magic. The feeling that something larger than life moves through the canyons and valleys, weaving stories of courage, loss, and the unexplained into the very fabric of the land. These paranormal whispers also reflect the human need to find meaning in the face of mystery. When faced with loss and unanswered questions, people often turn to stories that offer comfort or connection to those who are gone. The idea that Mark's spirit remains protecting the park is a way to keep his memory alive and to find peace amid uncertainty. It is a reminder that even when the truth is hidden, love and hope endure. Visitors to Big Bend today come with eyes open, not just to the stunning landscape, but also to the stories that linger in the wind. Many carry a quiet respect for the land and the spirits said to inhabit it, walking carefully as if aware of unseen watchers. The stories of strange footsteps, moving shadows, and whispered names add depth to the experience of the park, inviting reflection on life, death, and the mysteries that connect them. The legacy of Mark Reynolds, wrapped in both the facts of his disappearance and the legends that followed, continues to shape the way people see Big Bend. It reminds us that the wilderness is not just a place of physical beauty, but a realm where emotions, memories, and mysteries mingle, whether you believe in ghosts or not. The power of these stories lies in their ability to connect us to something beyond ourselves, to the wild, the unknown, and the enduring spirit of a man who loved the land so much that even after he was gone, his presence seemed to remain. Years had passed since Mark Reynolds vanished into the vast wilderness of Big Bend National Park. Despite the passage of time, the question of what happened to him remained unanswered, haunting everyone who had known him and the wider community that followed his story. In those years, technology advanced by leaps and bounds, offering new hope for uncovering mysteries like Mark's disappearance. The National Park Service and investigators never stopped looking, fueled by a determination to find even the smallest clue that could bring closure. New search efforts brought fresh energy and tools to a case that had long seemed frozen in time. One of the most important changes in modern search efforts was the introduction of drones. These unmanned flying machines could cover large areas quickly and reach places difficult or dangerous for people on foot. Equipped with high-resolution cameras, drones could capture detailed images of the rugged terrain, scanning rocky canyons, thick brush, and steep slopes where a person might be lost or hidden. The technology allowed search teams to explore every corner of the park from above, making the search more thorough and efficient than ever before. Yet despite flying countless miles over Big Bend's vast wilderness, the drones revealed nothing. No sign of Mark, no trace of his belongings, no hint of where he might have gone. Thermal imaging technology was another powerful tool added to the search efforts. This technology detects heat signatures, the warmth of a human body standing out against the cooler surroundings. It had the potential to find someone lost or trapped, even in total darkness or dense vegetation. Teams equipped with thermal cameras searched day and night, scanning the landscape for the faintest sign of life or recent activity. The hope was that, even years after his disappearance, the technology might reveal evidence missed by earlier searches. But again, the cold truth was that no trace of Mark appeared on the screens. The silence was deafening, a reminder of how vast and relentless the wilderness could be. Despite these advanced technologies, the mystery of Mark Reynolds' disappearance remained unsolved. His case stayed open, a constant presence on the desks of investigators and park officials. They continued to review old reports, interview witnesses, and examine the landscape with fresh eyes. Each new piece of technology brought new ideas and renewed efforts, but the answers still eluded them. The unknown hung like a shadow over Big Bend, a question mark that refused to be erased. For the National Park Service, Mark's disappearance was more than just a missing person case. It was a source of deep sadness and ongoing concern. Mark had been a dedicated ranger, someone who embodied the spirit of protecting America's natural treasures. His loss was felt not only as a personal tragedy, but as a reminder of the dangers faced by those who serve in the wilderness. The agency kept his memory alive through continued training, safety improvements, public awareness efforts, hoping to prevent similar tragedies. But the haunting question of what happened to Mark was never far from their minds. The families and friends who had waited years for answers felt the emotional weight of the ongoing search. For them, every new technology and search mission brought a mixture of hope and fear. Hope that maybe this time something would be found. A clue, a sign, a piece of Mark's story finally revealed. Fear that once again the wilderness would remain silent, leaving their pain unhealed and their questions unanswered. This roller coaster of emotions became a difficult journey to bear, marked by moments of fragile optimism and crushing disappointment. The wider community also remained deeply connected to the case. People in nearby towns, outdoor enthusiasts, and even strangers across the country followed the story with interest and sympathy. Mark's disappearance became part of the collective memory of the region, a reminder of both the beauty and danger of the wild. The ongoing search efforts kept his name alive, honoring his dedication and sacrifice. Many saw the persistence of the search as a testament to the enduring human spirit, a refusal to give up even when hope feels distant. In addition to technology, new search strategies were employed over the years. Experienced trackers, some with military backgrounds or years of wilderness survival training, joined the efforts. They brought skills in reading the land, spotting subtle signs, and interpreting natural clues that machines might miss. Their presence added a human touch to the high-tech searches, combining intuition and knowledge with modern tools. Together, these efforts formed a comprehensive approach to finding Mark, blending the best of past and present. Yet the wilderness of Big Bend remained vast and mysterious. Its rugged landscape, extreme weather, and sheer size created enormous challenges. Even with drones soaring overhead and thermal cameras scanning the night, the natural world proved relentless. The park's harsh environment seemed to guard its secrets fiercely, holding onto the story of Mark Reynolds like a treasure hidden deep within its canyons and deserts. Every search was a reminder of nature's power, its ability to both give life and take it away without warning. The unanswered questions about Mark's fate also inspired reflection on the fragility of human life in the face of nature. His disappearance highlighted the risks that park rangers and outdoor adventurers face every day. It was a solemn reminder that the wilderness, while beautiful and full of wonder, demands respect and caution. Mark's story became a lesson passed down to new generations of rangers and visitors, a call to prepare, to stay vigilant, and to honor those who dedicate themselves to protecting these wild places. Despite the lack of physical evidence, the ongoing search efforts brought the community together in solidarity. Volunteers, park staff, and family members continued to share information and support one another. Fundraisers and awareness campaigns kept the story alive, ensuring that Mark would not be forgotten. The case became more than just a search for a missing person. It became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of human connection. In the end, the modern search efforts, with their advanced technology and dedicated teams, reflect the deep commitment to finding truth and closure. They show that even in the face of overwhelming odds and silence from the wilderness, people refuse to give up. Mark Reynolds' story is still being written, carried forward by those who remember him and those who continue to look for answers in the endless desert. His disappearance remains one of Big Bend's greatest mysteries, a haunting reminder that some stories do not end neatly, but continue to live on in the hearts of those who seek to understand. And until that day when Mark's fate is finally known, the search will go on, driven by love, hope, and the unyielding human spirit that refuses to let a story fade away. Mark Reynolds' disappearance is a story that reaches deep into the heart of the wild, a powerful reminder of both its beauty and its dangers. The wilderness he loved so much is not just a place of quiet trails and stunning views. It is a realm where nature holds immense power, where every step can carry risk, and where the unexpected can change lives in an instant. Mark's story stands as a chilling example of what it means to face that wildness head-on, with bravery and dedication, even when the outcome is uncertain. The empty service revolver found years after his disappearance has come to symbolize much more than just a piece of equipment. It represents the courage Mark carried with him every day, the strength to protect the land and the people who visited it. That revolver with its empty chambers speaks to a story of confrontation and struggle, of a man who stood firm in the face of unknown dangers. It is a silent witness to the mystery that remains, a mystery that echoes through the canyons and deserts of Big Bend, refusing to be forgotten. Mark's loss is felt deeply by all who knew him and by the larger community connected to Big Bend National Park. His family carries the weight of his absence every day, their lives forever marked by hope and heartbreak. Friends and colleagues remember him not just as a ranger, but as a man of quiet strength and unwavering commitment. The park itself has become a place of memory and reflection, where his legacy lives on in the footsteps of those who walk the trails he once protected. The mystery of Mark's disappearance challenges us to accept the wild for what it is, a place of both wonder and danger, where answers are not always found and where some stories remain unfinished. It reminds us of the fragility of life and the bravery of those who dedicate themselves to protecting nature's most remote places. Mark's story is a call to respect the wilderness, to prepare carefully, and to remember those who have faced its challenges and never returned. Even as technology advances and search efforts continue, the truth about what happened to Mark Reynolds remains out of reach. This unanswered question lingers like a shadow over Big Bend, a reminder of the limits of human knowledge and the enduring mystery of the natural world. Yet in that mystery, there is also a quiet power, the power of memory, courage, and love that refuses to fade away. Mark's empty revolver left behind on a lonely rock stands as a symbol of all these things. It is a testament to a man who vanished while doing what he loved most, protecting a wild land filled with secrets. His story is a haunting legacy that calls us to remember, to honor, and to never forget the risks faced by those who guard the natural world. In the end, Mark Reynolds' disappearance is not just a cold case or a missing persons story. It is a deeply human tale of loss and hope, bravery and mystery. It touches something universal in all of us, the desire to find meaning, to hold on to love, and to face the unknown with courage. His story will live on in the wind that sweeps through Big Bend's canyons, in the footsteps of rangers who follow in his path, in the hearts of those who remember a man who vanished but never truly disappeared. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of our journey into America's most haunting mysteries. Join our community as we uncover stories like Mark Reynolds, stories of courage, loss, and the unknown that still linger in the wild. We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts below. What do you believe happened to Mark Reynolds deep in the wilds of Big Bend? Your ideas and theories might just help bring light to this haunting mystery.